will see that we are now live on Facebook. You might get a pop-up that says you have to acknowledge that we're on Facebook. That's just telling you all that you're out there in the world right now. And I think, Claire, that is all I have for my administrative part of this. So I'm going to become the woman behind the curtain. Claire, if you want to come back on and give the welcome and introduce Camille and tell everyone about our book drawing, that would be great. And let me just make sure we haven't lost Claire, because she's been.
Yeah, where did Claire go?
Yeah, where did Claire go?
She's been having some very peculiar ghost in the machine computer issues lately. So we need to make sure that she has not been kidnapped by a poltergeist or gone somewhere other than here. I'm looking through the participant list for Claire. And I don't see her. I don't see her. Does anyone else? Claire, are you out there? Okay, so I will, until Claire gets back, tell you all that MWA NorCal welcomes you to this mystery event. October is Mystery Month. We often have Mystery Week, which is at the end of the month. We decided to break it up a little bit because 6 or 7 days of straight Zoom can be just slightly overpowering for people. So we're doing these on Wednesday evenings and Saturday afternoons through the end of the month, with the exception of the 23rd, which will be live in person at Silver Sprockets, which is a comic shop in San Francisco, and that is our noir at the bar. That's a Saturday evening. This information can be found on the MWA NorCal events page, so please look there. I'll post that website link in the chat. And the book, let me grab it. Hold on a moment. One moment, please.
Laurie is doing double duty now. She's
right. So this is, and mine is in black noir. This is part of the giveaway. And what we're going to do for the giveaway is that I have the list of all of the attendees today and everyone who's registered. And I have a random number generator. So at the end of the event, I'm going to random number generate. We're going to see if that person is here. If they're not, we're going to pick a new number, because we are picking a winner who is butt in the seat here, giving it for the panel. So there we have it. And now I am going to pass this over to Camille. And Camille Minichino, who is absolutely wonderful. I need to tell you that I work for the Department of Physics at the Naval Postgraduate School. And Camille Minichino received her PhD in physics from Fordham University. She's currently on the faculty of Golden Gate University, San Francisco. She teaches writing throughout the Bay Area. Camille is a past president and member of Mystery Writers of America NorCal Sisters in Crime, and the California Writers Club. And Camille, if I have missed anything, I hope that you will elucidate. So now I will become my position of woman behind the camera and go away and pass it over to you. So
okay, well, thank you, Laurie.
I'll see you on the flip side.
Yes, don't go too far, because there's no telling what might happen.
No, I will remain the disembodied voice.
Yes, as long as you're here, right. And I think all that's left for Claire, I have a message from the president. That's not Joe, but Claire, who is equally esteemed. And if she were here, she would remind you, if you're not a member, you would be very welcome to join. If you are, you might want to renew. MWA has meetings throughout the year, most of them are public. So we always welcome new members. And you just go to mysterywriters.org to join or renew. So that is the end of the administrative part of the program. No more commercials until the very end. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our panel. I, of course, went through their websites and looked up, and my goodness, you know, it would be just, you'd be breathless counting all the books they've written and all the wonderful places they've been in their stories. So let me just introduce everyone briefly, and then feel free to supplement that as we go along if I've left out some key part of your life that you wish had been recorded here. So Glenda, this is kind of strange. One of Glenda's best reviews was in a swimming magazine. Now, when does that happen? But yes, a swimming magazine. So Glenda has written in the past a weekly sailing column for the Marine Independent Journal for 19 years. So a long history of travel writing and sailing. And we want to know what then brought you to mystery writing. So be ready to tell us after we go through the others.
Okay.
Eileen is here with a lot of friends. Eileen Rendell is here with Christy Abbott, Lillian Bell, and Eileen Carr, who are on mute for now, but feel free to bring them on when you want. She's a national best-selling author of mystery, thriller, urban fantasy, I'm not through, romantic comedy, and romantic suspense. So one of the things would be, what? All those genres, Eileen, how great of you. And now Deborah Crombie, if you try to scroll through her books, you run out of computer space because it just goes on forever. One of them, Deborah's fifth novel, Dreaming of the Bones, was a New York Times notable book in 1997 and also named as one of the 100 best crime novels of the century. So we are so privileged to have all three of these women here this afternoon to answer our questions. And everyone, feel free to, as I said, just tell me your favorite thing that I left out of your great bios. My question, and I feel like I know you through all I've read about you, and I've met a couple of you at meetings and so on, and you all seem like really nice people. So I want to know, why are you writing about murder? You know, why aren't you writing happy books like, I don't know, Mr. Rogers or something? Eileen, what draws you to writing crime to begin? We know it doesn't pay. That is mystery writer's slogan, isn't it? Crime doesn't pay.
Enough.
Enough. Thank you.
I grew up reading murder mysteries. It was what my dad read. So it was what was around the house mainly. He particularly liked mysteries by British women. He liked the dry wit that the Brits have, and he felt like the women writers gave him more of a sense of place, of really being in the story. So those were his favorites. So that was what was kind of strewn around the house. So if you didn't have time to go to the library, it was, Agatha Christie and Mary Stewart and lots of fun stuff. And now March and, all those great grand dames of mystery, Dorothy Sayers. Yeah.
But you still felt safe in your home. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay.
I would definitely have been less afraid of my father than my mother. She was a nurse. I think she knew a little bit more about how to get rid of somebody than he did. He was a physicist.
Okay. So Glenda, how about you? What drew you to writing mysteries, especially?
Well,
All the sailing.
yeah, very much like Eileen. It's what I read. I remember my parents every year giving me the latest Nancy Drew, and I just continued reading women mysteries, either about if the sleuth was a woman, and so from Nancy Drew up to Sue Grafton, because there just weren't that many women writers, or at least that I found, and protagonists, and so that was what interests me. And I just found that there are often things that have happened in my life that go obviously into my books, like all of us, but the next question in my mind was, well, what if it went that way?
Mhm.
What if instead of this person, and as you mentioned, I do a lot in water, I do a lot of swimming now, not so much sailing, but I swim a lot. What if this person, instead of, charging through the Finnish gate at an open water swim, collapses you know, this is while I'm swimming behind them going, yeah, collapse, so I can go ahead of you. So, but those are some of the things, you know, I'm always in there going, what if it went the other way? What if this was more evil than good? And to me, good is boring,
Yeah,
basically.
excellent. No, thank you. Thank you. And Deborah, how about you? Mystery? How many
Oh.
now? I think you have your 20th coming out next year. Is that right?
19th. I lose
19th.
count.
Oh,
Yeah, I lose
19th.
count too. Well, my favorite thing that you didn't mention in the introduction is that I am a Texan and I live in Texas, but I write British crime novels with Scotland Yard detectives. And like everybody else, it was what I read. I was an Anglophile as long as I can remember, from like Winnie the Pooh probably, and I loved everything British. And it was the fun Eileen's story about her dad and the women British mystery writers, because I read all those, but my dad read Dick Francis. And we loved Dick Francis. We went to signings, we got autographed
Wow.
copies, we gave each other, you know, whoever had the closest Christmas, birthday, whatever. It was always the newest Dick Francis book. So that was a very strong mystery thread that we shared.
All right. So the title of this panel is Plotting. That's with T's, not D's, plotting. And so I don't want to forget that, that it's plotting, that's the topic. So let's just get to the usual question, pantser or plotter, or in between, pantser or plotter. Who wants to start?
I'm mostly a plotter, but I'm a loose plotter. I like to know, I usually start out knowing who did it, why they did it, you know, what the basic themes of the story are, but I don't know necessarily all the details about how I'm going to get from here to there. And I can only do specific outlining, usually 3 or 4 chapters at a time, because everything changes as you move forward.
Okay, Glenda, you were starting.
Yeah, for me, book 1, I basically started in the middle and went that way. And then I rearranged all of that. Book 2, Drop Dead Red, I thought, okay, this is when I get organized. And I made an outline and I thought, this is gonna work. And by the end of the first chapter, I threw the outline out. I wasn't doing anything. I couldn't stick to it. Could not. I never know who did it. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I just kind of follow a thread in my mind and it develops. Book 3, which is the book that's just going to be published at the end of this month, Dead Code. It was another one where I had an idea about something that interests me. And one of the things that it's included in all my books is swimming, open water swimming, which means swimming in lakes and rivers, San Francisco Bay, things like that. And so I know that's going to be in there, and the rest just kind of it's whatever interests me at the time. So I couldn't follow an outline to save my soul.
Oh, yes, I understand that. I have a question from Meredith Phillips, a priority interrupt here, who is worried that not everyone might be familiar with the term pantser. In fact, I think she thought I said panther. So let me be clear that it's pantser means by the seat of your pants. So you sit down and write and you hardly know where you're going. Probably not too many of us are that loose, but who knows? We haven't heard from Eileen yet. Oh, all right. So pantser, by the seat of your pants, are a plotter outline. Thank you, Meredith, for helping me clarify that. So Eileen, how about you? Where on the spectrum are you?
I'm a plotter. I wish I could write like Glenda does. That the idea of that is so appealing to me, to just like sit down and let the story flow forth. But I can't. I just freeze up. My characters are like like in a video game. So like if you don't hit the button to tell them to go forth, they just stand there. The level of plotting definitely varies with what genre I'm writing at any given moment. When I started out writing romantic comedies, they were definitely looser. I had sort of tent pole moments, and then I had, the secondary characters development, and pretty much by the time you got that and connected them all up, you were kind of done writing the book. The other end of the spectrum for me is the cozy mysteries. I find they require a lot more plotting than really any of the other genres, because you have to have that puzzle aspect, and you have to have the personal aspect, and you have to have the place, and there's just a lot of very intricate little parts. And because I'm not a particularly linear thinker and don't write in a linear way, I need that plot outline, so that it's like, well, I know what I'm going to write this part, and I know it goes here. And which is part of why I really like Scrivener too. I can kind of do that and go, oh, okay, that goes right there.
That's interesting.
Maybe
because
we should.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Linda.
Oh, maybe we should explain what Scrivener is, Eileen.
Oh, it's a writing program it's designed basically to help people manage long documents. I use it for novels. I've used it for presentations to help me, get that in order. Otherwise, I'm like paging through all these different, where did I write that, and where did I write this, and searching on words to try to find a little piece that I want to put in a various places.
Yeah, I use it. I use Scrivener too, and I love it. But
really,
my books tend to be multiple viewpoint, and it just really, really helps you keep up with stuff.
I'm ghostwriting a book right now, and being able to have, like, just down the side, having color coded whose point of view each scene's in, just being able to kind of look through and go, ooh, we haven't had anything in her point of view for, like, I don't know, a while.
And besides, it's fun.
Yeah. So Glenda, I'm thinking this does not appeal to you, that you're not a fan.
I bought it. It's on my computer. I tried to use it. I didn't do very well. So no, I'm a Word doc person. And
yes.
Believe me, I would love to move into Scrivener, and I might try it for book 4, but I have a feeling that
Honor your process, Linda.
I don't know.
And I'm not sure that with that much but I know that if I were to outline, I would consider I'm done, and I would leave it alone and not finish it. So I'm definitely a wing it kind of person. It's nice that we have this variety, though, isn't it? And I think one thing it does, especially with the three of you, it shows all those maybe newer writers out there listening or attending, that there really isn't just one way to do things, that you can write and be published or achieve whatever goals you're going to achieve, as long as you just write. It doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum of plotter or pantser anyway.
Yeah, everybody's process is different.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. And I'm wondering, because you sort of brought this up, Eileen, you write in so many different genres, and apparently the process you use is a little different for each one. I'm wondering then, does your plot sort of go along with that? In other words, do you adjust your plot? You must have a different reader in mind, from urban fantasy to rom-com. So how does that work for you? Do you?
So a lot of them I feel kind of overlap each other. Like the urban fantasy series that I wrote was very much in the same voice as the chick lit novels that I wrote. But in terms of structure, it was much more like a old-fashioned private eye, hard-boiled detective kind of thing. At least that's what I was going for. So I feel like, at a certain point, sometimes the book tells you what kind of plot it needs. I'm working on a thriller right now that it goes from place to place. They travel a great deal. And it has its own impetus in how it gets plotted, because they come here, they learn this thing that takes them here, where they learn the thing that takes them here, where they learn the thing that, and it, that's what dictates the plot. And then their internal journey sort of follows along behind that, as opposed to like with romances where the internal journey is really what's driving the story, and the plot's what's, the things that happen are what follows along behind that. And like I said, the cozies to me are just these very intricate little puzzles that
Puzzles, right. What about scenes that do you find some scenes harder to write than others, or is everyone just sort of the same? Deborah, do you have a thought on that? Like what?
I love writing dialogue. And it's funny because when I first decided that I wanted to try to write a novel, particularly a British novel, I was terrified of writing dialogue. How on earth can I make these people sound believable? But what I discovered pretty quickly was that it's just fun. And there's this magic thing that happens when you start your characters talking, and then they just sort of take off and carry the conversation. And a lot of things develop in the plot through dialogue, and unexpected things develop in the plot through the characters' dialogue, and character development comes out of dialogue that is not always expected.
And you have an arc, you have the series is a long one. Is there an arc that's overrides that, or do you have an arc for each separate book, or how does that work for you?
Combination. I certainly didn't plan a series arc when I started out. I have detectives that started out as partners and professional partners, and are now married partners with a blended family, but they no longer work officially together. So, I have to do a lot of juggling to get both of them working on the same case. But it's been an unexpected journey.
Right, and it certainly worked out well for you and your readers. So thank you for that. So how about you, Glenn? Did you have certain scenes that you dread writing, or some that you can't wait to get to?
Well, when you first asked that question, I thought the hardest scene for me is the next one. It's like, I don't know where, since I don't know where I'm going, right? It's like what fits here? And there were times when I was writing the first book, Dead in the Water, I had no idea what to do, and maybe it was writer's block, I don't know. But at the time it was summer, and I had an old-fashioned push mower, the kind push down, and I would go out and cut the grass. And I was sweating, and I just couldn't think of anything. But by the time I came back into the house, I had the idea of where it should go next. And then the scene kind of develops. But one thing I have learned is that whatever the scene is going to have to be rewritten 2 or 3 times. Because all I come up with is basically an outline in my mind for the scene. So I guess I outline, but I don't know when it's going to get there. And, each time but I've learned that, because I thought the first thing I write, that's going to be it with a few tweaks. That's not the case, but so that's kind of me.
I'm going to use that line, Glenda. I'm sorry. The next scene is the hardest.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm taking it. I'm stealing it. Yeah.
That's all right. Okay.
Eileen, how about you? What do you dread, or what do you really look forward to?
Well, genre dependent. Again, fight scenes, super hard for me. I've never been in a physical fight. That wasn't something that I've ever done. And so those were hard. In the urban fantasy series I wrote had a lot of fight scenes in it. Luckily, I had a friend who was a black belt, and so she helped me choreograph those. Cozy mysteries, the hardest scene for me to come up with is like when the killer is revealed, like, what does do they just confess? I mean, it's that one. So that wrapping those up is really hard for me. And I will say that while I don't find them really necessarily difficult to write, the idea about other people reading sex scenes in the romances does kind of give me pause occasionally.
Eileen, I want you to know that we have some offers in the chat room to start a fight sometime. So,
Oh,
you know,
super, super.
so yeah, we'll get together on that and see what's up.
I want to know who, just because I want to be sure that like I have some sort of advantage.
Yeah, right. Yes. Well, let's see. How about this time that we're in, this very challenging time? Are you finding it harder to write or to be creative with? Well, there's always a lot going on, obviously, in the world, but I think this is an especially challenging time. So what has it meant for you then to be a writer, to be creative, to stay creative in this time? Anyone?
It's been hard for me. I mean, obviously, because my books are set in the UK, and the book that I was starting when we went into lockdown is set in London, in Bloomsbury and Soho, and I never got to do my research trips, and that on the ground. I normally spend about a month out of the year in the UK, and that on the ground absorbing all those details, and it's been hard. I'm getting there, but it's been tough. I spend a lot of time on Google Street View, and I think I think just the general anxiety has, and I know it's worked the opposite way for some people. Some people who have just dived in and written like crazy, and some people have just had problems with being a little bit overwhelmed by the world.
Oh, definitely.
I think I just took some time off. I couldn't get really motivated. I was trying to, I was probably like into the second draft of Dead Code, the book that's coming out. And what I find really helped me is both mystery organizations that I belong to, Mystery Writers of America and Sisters in Crime, have write-ins. And I started just going to them. And then bit by bit, I began to write a little bit more. I mean, I built up some momentum that I didn't have before. And that made a big difference. Honestly, there were times I didn't want to go, but I would, click onto it. And for the first 5 minutes, I might play solitaire. But then eventually I can't even justify that to myself. So I would start writing, and then oftentimes I would continue. So the write-ins to me, and just seeing other people trying to do what I was doing, was inspirational and helpful.
Right. And just to be clear, it's a write-in that you're talking about, correct? IN, writing.
IN, yeah, it's just
like
there's
a
about
sprint?
4 or 5 of us, 6 of us online. We write for 45 minutes, not much chit chat, and then say, see you tomorrow. Or next week.
Excellent. And of course, NaNoWriMo is one of those write-ins on a bigger scale, and that's coming up also. I don't know if you've ever used that, but
not me. No, I haven't. I'm going to try to do it, but that's the same kind of the structure of an outline. As soon as you say you've got to do this, it's like, not a chance. I'm not doing that. So I will try once again. Yeah.
So
all right.
defiant.
Maybe we have, Eileen, are you trying to pick a fight? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll be the
bars. We're going to the bars.
I think for me, books were always an escape, and writing at a certain point was an escape for me too. So I think in some ways it was helpful to be writing during this time, because I could just go off into my own imaginary world and where I could decide what happened. And also, I am really easy to distract and pull off task. So the fact that for like a big portion of this time, there was nobody saying, hey, come over for dinner, or
Mm.
let's go for a walk, or let's get coffee, or let's have lunch. And it was just,
Couldn't do that, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't, and it's still pretty not
Yeah.
the way it used to be, you know? So
Right.
I feel like there are fewer distractions for
Mm.
me as well. And that's helped me be a little more productive.
So any other tricks that you have to sort of get into the mindset of writing?
I turn on music a lot.
Mm.
Mhm.
For about 4 or 5 months of the lockdown, my boyfriend, his office, of course, he came here and he was working virtually. And then we had a friend who had pretty much the worst Airbnb story that I have ever heard. Ended up staying with us for about 4 or 5 months. He was also working virtually. So, you know, Andy would be in his office and Adam would be at the dining room table and I would be in my little space in the family room. And everybody could be in meetings and there'd be voices and talking and this and that. And so I started just like a kind of collecting, you know, music with no words. If it has words, I
Yeah.
can't keep writing.
Right.
But I can stick my little headphones in and start the music, and it kind of helps me close everything else out.
Are you doing that now to get rid of us? Is that what you're thinking?
Actually, I'm doing this to get rid of anything that's happening
Yeah,
around,
okay.
because every once in a while I can hear my boyfriend out in the front yard. He's digging some holes to plant some plants we bought earlier today, and the ground is hard.
Digging holes in the yard. That sounds also like a story in the movie. Anyway.
What's he really going to put in there?
Yeah. Or
What's he gonna
who?
find?
Who is he putting in there?
Yeah.
So how about the issue of subgenres? You know, it seems to me right now it's sort of very strict. I teach a writing class and you have to, with query letters, say, you know, what is this? What exactly are you writing? Women's fiction, upmarket fiction, cozies, horror. How do you feel? Do you feel in any way restricted by that, or does it just pass by you and it doesn't affect you at all? The labeling, so to speak. Deborah, do you have an idea? Oh, go ahead, Eileen.
Sometimes the labels can be helpful. I also teach writing, and at a certain point where, you know, somebody will say, well, I'm writing a cozy mystery, and then they hit the steamy sex scene and you're like, you're not writing a cozy mystery.
Right.
You know, it's like, what are the expectations of the genre? What scenes have to be in there for the genre? What scenes really can't be in there for the genre? And I find that helpful, especially when I'm teaching. But for me too, to kind of keep me on track a little bit. My roots are in romance, and so there's pretty much always something romantic going on. You know, learning to like say, you can have that there, but you know, we're winking and shutting the door when we get there. We're not walking in with them.
Fade to black, right? Glenda, how about?
Yeah, I think what I write is a little looser category. I take it labeled as police procedurals, or traditional mysteries. I don't know. You know, I think that British cop crime novel is just a little bit looser. I think people might be shocked if I did really, really graphic sex scenes. They are, I don't know. I can put in, I don't feel too constricted by it. I have never particularly wanted to write really graphic sex scenes. I kind of like sexual tension and closing the door, but I have used little bits here and there when they advance the plot. And they are sometimes a little more violent than others. Again, I think there are certain things that you just can't do, but I don't find it all that limiting.
Hey, I just, to go back to Eileen for a minute, I just realized you do make some comments about sex with vampires, or is that someone else I'm having?
I had at least one vampire book, but I don't think the main character wasn't getting busy with him. But
I could be really mean and quote here from your book, but I'll leave it to the audience to go and look up "Don't Kill the Messenger."
yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
he was a very attractive vampire, though, as I recall. Or at least I was trying to write him that way.
Camille,
So
Camille,
Glenda, how
so
about
the-
you and the tropes of the different subgenres? How does that work for
Well,
you?
I just always thought of it as a mystery. I know it's not noir. I know it's basic, elimination. What isn't it? I know it's not a police procedural, and it's just a mystery, but it has a female protagonist, a female sleuth, but she's not a detective. She's not a policewoman. She's just somebody who's really nosy and determined. And people, because they trust her, say, yeah, I know this is with the police, but do you think you might be able to help me a little bit?
Right.
So I don't know if that's a particular genre. I just say I write mysteries.
Do you have any other goal in mind? Any of you know some kind of social agenda that you're trying to put out there, or do you not think of that at all? Do you just consider you're writing fiction and you're not you don't have any underlying motives, so to speak?
I personally feel at this point, no, but I just have a sense since this last book that I've been talking about, Dead Code, is about cybercrime and cyber criminals. And I just have a feel the things that are interesting to me right now are going to go into that genre. I don't think it's there now by any means, but I just feel that there are certain things I'm interested in trafficking. And I kind of want to learn more about it. And usually what that triggers to me is I want to know more, and then I want to tell somebody about it. So I'm not there yet by any means, but that may be where I'm going.
So does this take a lot of research then? That would be another aspect of it. Does this mean you're spending more time, say, than in the other of your books?
Yes, very much so.
Doing research?
Because the Dead Code is about cyber criminals. And I mean, I just was really interested in why is all of this hacking of big major companies going on? Why are they paying these millions of, some are not millions, but hundreds of thousands? What is this? And so I decided to put it into a book because was it around 2007, basically San Francisco was shut down because the engineer who developed the computer system was so protective of it, he didn't want to give the code to anybody, and nobody, to get into it, nobody could get in but him. And they said, you got to do that. You've got to give us this code. And he said, no. So I used some of it. I just was fascinated by that. And he was in jail, and it was Mayor Newsom at the time, came in and said, hey, I'm about to get married. Please don't do this to me. Just give us the code and we'll let you out. And that's what happened. And I was on all these hacking websites and boards that they were on, and some were saying, oh yeah, this guy's back in town, he's doing this. No, and it got somebody else said, no, this is me, I did it, I'm here, but I don't do that anymore because I don't want to go to jail. So to me, it was just really interesting, and that would be whatever it is that I'm working with. The other thing for this particular book is I have a relatively close friend who had his own computer company for many, many, many years and worked a lot and developed it into cybersecurity, so that if I had a question, and believe me, I had many, from really simple ones to really difficult ones, I would say, how do I explain this? Or does this make sense? And I would send him, pages, and he was able to help me. So I knew what I was doing is correct, because I was really worried that I was going to screw it up.
Well, there's nothing like a expert that you can count on, is there?
Yeah.
to help you through all of these. I have a cousin who's a freelance embalmer. He's been a great help to me. So
Yes.
I know, yeah. So
Well, now we know who to ask if we have questions about embalming. We'll be emailing you.
actually, some people, he is very willing to give his email out, and he does. Yeah,
A freelance embalmer? Okay, I have to find out more about
yes.
this.
It just means that he's not attached to a mortuary. He
Yeah.
just is called by whoever needs him. That doesn't sound too good, but you know what I'm saying. So how about you, Deborah? Do you have something that you something on the order of an issue that you have a position on that you'd like to express that might come through your books, or is it just fiction?
I don't want to write preachy books. I don't think that's the purpose of fiction, but I think naturally we tend to write about things that interest us. And I think our viewpoints on things tend to come through in our novels. I have dealt with things like police corruption and some racism and social justice issues,
Right.
things in the UK, but they have come out of the story. And the things I was really, really interested in, things that happen in British policing and history of racism in Notting Hill, but it was part of the story. So
And because you are writing, even though you couldn't physically go there, you still very much sound like a Brit. Sorry, which is a great thing. And so does that influence you? Do you ever have a conflict between I'm an American, but I'm a Brit also, or something? Does that ever come into it?
not really. And my voice is different obviously people who read my books and don't know I'm not English, if I speak, it's a dead giveaway. But the voice that I hear in my head is different. I've never written from the viewpoint of an American character in the UK, because I would be afraid I might slip into caricature if I did that. So I write from the viewpoint of British characters. Maybe I have a little bit of objectivity that, but the Brits tend to be very self-analytical. So I'm not sure that being American really sets me apart that much.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
fun. I love it.
It is really fascinating. Thank you. How about you, Eileen, on this same issue, sort of?
I've had at least one book where there was definitely a social message that the book grew from it. But generally, no. I mean, I do try to want to have some diversity in my characters, but luckily a lot of the books are based where I live, and where I live tends to be pretty diverse, and there tends to be a lot of different kinds of people with different sorts of viewpoints. So it's a little easier to kind of work that in. It feels a little more natural. But overall, I feel like each genre kind of has its own agenda in its own way too. Like, mysteries tend to be all about setting things to right. Something bad has happened, and the bad person needs to be punished, and the good people need to be rewarded, and order needs to be restored. And in the romances, it's all about love conquering all, and how love can heal us all and bring us together. And so they all kind of have their own little agendas underneath everything.
A good point, but that's kind of an interesting one also. So in your writing, or all of you, is it a happy ending, so to speak? Is justice always done? And, the meet cute ends up with some happy endings, or is it, of course, in subgenres, some of them, it isn't like that. So, but are you always careful, so to speak, to resolve things in a just way? I'll put it that way.
I've played around with not doing that in short stories mainly. because I kind of feel like in short stories, you don't have to get to all the way to the end of it. You just have to get to that like moment of transformation, that aha moment, and then you can walk away
Yeah.
from it. So not all of my short stories end quite that happy, but in my books, maybe it's that early romance training. I got to get us to a happy ever after, or at least a happy for now.
So how about you, Glenda? You're nodding. Do you?
Yeah,
feel
mine
so?
seem to end like, in a happier way, but given some of the history that, say, the protagonist has with her on again, off again boyfriend, some of the readers at this point expect, oh, well, what's going to happen now that they separate, but basically I do end it on a positive note.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Deborah.
I think justice is usually done in my books. They're not always totally happy endings. I think there are almost always consequences.
Oh, yeah.
Good point. Yeah. We have a question that I think we touched on already, but I'll ask it anyway. Someone is asking, does the subgenre determine any differences in plotting? I think, Eileen, you touched on that a bit already there. Anybody have anything to add what Eileen has offered? I think one good point also is that short stories give us all a little more freedom maybe to do that, to sort of let things be a little bit unresolved or in some way. So that was a good point you made, Eileen. So I think we're coming to the end. I was expecting Laurie to shut us off at any minute, but I'm not sure. Since I can't see her, I can't tell whether she's frowning or what. But let's maybe wrap it up a little bit by telling us what you're working on now and what's coming next that we should be looking for. Deborah, do you want to start?
I'm working on a book called A Killing of Innocence, and it will be out in next summer, 22.
Oh, and do you want to give us a one-liner or just keep us all in utter suspense?
I think I'll keep you in suspense.
All right, everyone make a note though. Glenda, how about you? What's next for you?
As I mentioned, I'm going to show you, I think I held this up before, Dead Code, which I'm very proud of, is going to launch the end of this month, October 27th, and I'm going to have a launch party, and you have to register through Eventbrite, and I'll put that in the Facebook feed if anybody's interested. And not only will there be questions to me, but the gentleman who designs all my covers is going to be there as well, and he's a swim teammate of mine. We've known each other for 25 years. So I'm spending a lot of energy focused there, but I actually have come up with an idea maybe for the next book. And it's actually going to be a modernization of the Shakespearean play Hamlet.
All right. And Glenda, someone is asking, will this launch party be in person?
I'm sorry, it's Zoom, and you have to register through Eventbrite. I'm not sure where, I think it's Colleen who asked that question. I'm not sure where you live. I have a lot of relatives on the East Coast.
I know where you live, yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, it'll be, let me see, in Pacific time, it's 4 to 5. And then Eastern time, it's 7 to 8. It's just an hour. I can't imagine I'll have that much to talk about. I'm a little nervous about this. I've never done this before. So it'd be nice if you were there and you can sort of virtually hold my hand. I'd appreciate it.
Yes. And Laurie said she'll put the link here anyway.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're all set. Eileen, what's next for you?
So I actually put my own writing on pause for a little bit. A little less than a year ago, I started doing a lot of ghostwriting, and that took off a little faster than I anticipated. So I haven't really had a lot of time for my own stuff recently. I am really hoping to get to the follow-up to this book, the second one in the series of my Empty Nest Mysteries. But right now, I actually can't tell you what I have coming out next because there are NDAs involved.
Mm.
Oh, wow, that's even more intriguing. Thank you. So any final thoughts you want to give our audience? Laurie, are you there? And I think Laurie is going to talk about the raffle of the drawing for the Mystery Writer's Handbook. And Deborah, you have an essay in that, is that correct?
I do, on plotting. So very appropriate.
Imagine that. You still have more to say on plotting.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But I do want to thank you all again for sharing. And if there's any last word you'd like to add, please do. And then Laurie will take over. So I guess not. So thank you so much. I feel incredibly enriched by all of you. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody for participating.
Yes,
Yeah.
this has been great. So from the panel, do you have any final words of wisdom on plotting or something else that you want to offer before we break into these questions?
I think just everybody's brains work, as he said, everybody's process is different. Everybody's brains work so differently. And whichever way you approach stories, you can write a great story. I mean, some of my favorite writers start out like Glenda and have no idea where the story is going. And some of my other favorite writers use spreadsheets. So whatever works.
Spreadsheets for you, Deborah, and Eileen.
No, not that bad.
Scrivener for you, yeah.
There's a couple books out there that I found to be really helpful. Some kind of like bigger picture ones. Lisa Crone has written a couple books about story and how how we approach story that are a little more general. But and then Alexandra Sokoloff has written a couple books on plotting that I find, like, when I'm in the middle of trying to figure out what I'm going to do, they're super helpful to me.
Nice. And Glenda, Glenda just gets in the water when she needs
I
some.
know.
Yeah. I'm
know.
An open water swimmer, and I've been on a swim team for many years. Not in college, not in high school. I always swam because I enjoyed it, but I came to, sort of competition a little later. And then when all the pools closed down because of COVID, I went into the Bay, San Francisco Bay, and decided, and I was thinking of a plot for book 4 because I was training to do what's called an Alcatraz swim from Alcatraz to San Francisco. And I did that about 2 weeks ago. And, I trained for that. I knew I could do the distance. I knew I could handle the cold water because I don't swim with a wetsuit. But while I was training, I'm thinking about, got to go into a book. Somehow I've got to use this because it's, not only that, you have to, all the mental games you play when you're doing long distance swimming. It's like, can I get out now? No, you have to swim another 15 minutes. Just do it. And so, yeah, that's what I do. And I came up sort of with the plot for book 4 based on the swimming. You have nothing else to do.
You realize you're really frightening Eileen. She's worried for you.
The water's really cold.
Yeah.
Alcatraz swim.
Alcatraz swim, yeah.
So what?
I want to read
Glenda,
that.
there are accolades coming into the chat for your swim.
Thank
But
you.
what Glenda is not
exactly.
telling you is that she's part of our MWA write-in that we have on Saturday mornings and Wednesday evenings now. And Glenda would get herself all psyched up, and it's a tremendous amount of adrenaline. And she'd say, "All right, the swim's this weekend." She'd practice, she'd get ready, and then the next time we talk, we're like, "Glenda, the swim." She's like, "Oh, it was foggy. It was too windy. There were big boats. We couldn't do it." I mean, this kept happening. So she would just psych herself into, this is the time. And then the next time we talked, she's like, "Nope, didn't happen."
Yeah,
Do it all again.
It was the 4th time that it was ideal. It was one of those beautiful days in the Bay a few weeks ago where it was flat. It was not windy. My only concern about it was jumping off the boat into the water. I thought, I hope I don't have a heart attack, but I didn't. and I did it. I thought I did this one.
All right.
You're being
So-
called a
bold.
superhero among other
No,
words.
no, that,
She is.
I know people who are so superheroes in the open water world, not me.
Yeah,
I
but
think,
that's your superpower. That is your
I plot in the bathtub. Does that count?
So I saw Susan pop in and then disappear. Susan, the few questions you asked, a few questions, I'm going to go ahead and ask them. If you want to come back on, and if anyone else does, I'll if that's okay with you, Camille, I'll go ahead
yes, I
and pose
kind
these
of,
questions.
yes, I lost track a little bit of the chat, so I'm
That's
happy
okay.
to
It's
have
been
you.
this has been a fun chat. So let's start with a couple of Susan's questions. Susan asked, this one was specifically to Deb. Do you have single story plots? Oh, you have single story plots, but do you have a huge series arc? Do you have a plot that is more specific? So how do you frame those individual plots per book? And then do you know where you're going over the series? Is that right, Susan? Did I do that okay? Oh,
I
you're
don't
muted.
have
Come on.
I don't have a planned series arc. I usually know what I want to happen in the series with the characters a book or two ahead, but that's about as far as it goes. So, I mean, I can see now, looking back on the books, I can see the series arc, but I didn't plan it.
Wow.
So you,
Impressive.
yeah, do you all feel that that's something that happens organically? Does the series arc sort of just happen as you're moving through your series, as the characters grow with you?
I had never thought of a series arc, and that I write a series, but I think that's exactly what is happening. You know, as they mature, they're a few years older, I'm a few years older when I write them. And I think, yeah, I hadn't thought of that at all, but I think that's what happens.
I know I see people who write, say, trilogies, and they have an arc and they say, you know, this is going to take place in 3 books. But I think that is a different thought process than a long-running crime series.
I agree. When you well, it's like when you're watching like a TV series and they don't know where it's going to end. You know, it
Right.
has to be, they have to be able to keep expanding it, but the sort of the more limited ones, then they can do like an overall arc, and then the things in between can each have their own little thing.
Right. Or they come back like Dexter is going to make a reappearance.
Got to fix that ending.
How they
Yes, Susan asked another question. And Susan, tell me if I get this wrong. You asked, what are the conventions, or are there conventions to women's fiction?
Was that for anybody in particular?
I think
I
that
think it
one
was for
seemed to
you,
be-
Eileen, because you mentioned you were
Yeah.
talking about the different conventions, and that's when I think I popped it in there. You because you've talked about women's fiction, but you didn't kind of deep go in. I'm curious about that.
So, I mean, obviously you're getting my definition of what women's fiction is, and somebody else might have a different take on it. But those books to me are largely one woman's journey of self-discovery. So you have those conventions. Often I found that they start where something's happened and that person
Mhm.
has to put their life back together somehow. And in doing that, grows and becomes sort of a new person. I think you can do it with a mystery subplot. I think you can do it with all kinds of different things, but I'm not sure how.
A
But
romantic comedy.
those are
or a-
secondary to
Yeah.
that voyage.
Because I've just I've written one that I couldn't decide if it was crime fiction or women's fiction, and I'm leaning towards it being women's fiction with the crime being secondary, and that's what I was wondering. Yeah, thanks.
All right, Joyce Walcott asks, and this one was directed to you, Deborah, but it seems to be something that we can extrapolate on as a panel. Since you're writing UK procedurals, how are you able to find experts to consult? And I think that goes, I mean, of course, Glenda's her own expert for open water swimming, but I think that could probably go to Camille or Elaine for specifics. But Deborah, do you want to start that?
I've had friends in the UK on different police forces, and there is a whole lot of information out there that you can find. This book, for instance, Garden of Lamentations, has a whole plot line about undercover policing in the UK and police corruption in Special Branch, and there was tons of material available, particularly a long-running investigation by The Guardian. So I think partly you just have to be a good researcher. And I have help at home too, because my husband is a former cop. So even though not a UK cop, it's very helpful to say, would you do this? And a lot of the time, there may be specifics of procedure that are different, but your basic way of working is not.
Right.
So,
And if I could sort of intercede here or interrupt, I think I found that people are really willing and loving giving you their
Mhm.
expertise. Cops or firefighters or just medical
yeah,
personnel. You almost can't stop them once they get started, right? When you ask them a question. So that I found that throughout, and it's been extremely helpful. You just have to ask, sort of, not be afraid to ask.
I've never gotten up the nerve to walk into the Metropolitan Police. So,
Well, I did it once, not there, but in San Leandro, not a big city. But I remember writing a letter saying, could I get some help with police procedural? And I was told, as long as I made a formal request, so they would get points for their community service, that I could have a cop. And that cop has been with me, so to speak, for like 25 years. And I still can just email him a question. And anyway, yeah, pardon me for.
No, that's
being
an
here.
excellent point. So people do like to talk about what they do if
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
properly. So I think, and MWA does have subject matter experts as well. So there's a way to pose questions to MWA and have those replied to. There's an ME and police officers and FBI agents. So there's a way to sort of query those things that you need to find as well. Anne Logan asks, do you feel guilty killing off one of your characters? I mean, do you pick someone to put in a book that you're going to kill anyway, and that's a despicable person, or have you ever actually gone back and killed off one of your main characters? I don't know if that's where she was going, and Anne, if you want to pop in and do this with us, feel free.
I've had a terrible time with some of the characters that I have killed in my series. Just really, really. But I think what happens when you are invested in a character that you really care about, and you have something like that happen to them, your reader is invested too. So,
Right.
But sometimes it's not fun to write.
I find I get attached to them, and I know I have to kill them off, and they're like pleading for their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't kill me, kill so-and-so. Stop arguing. Stop
I want
it.
to die.
Eileen, how about you? Have you killed off someone integral to your books?
I've certainly killed off characters that I've come to very much love and care about. And it is hard, but if you want the reader to care whether or not this person lives or dies, then you better care too. Otherwise it gets a little flippant.
Yeah.
And you know that they have to go. I mean, there's no.
Someone's got to die.
But
But it's a good point that if you're not invested in them, then the reader doesn't care either if they're around or not. Mhm.
Right.
Thank
That's a good
you.
point, Camille. Yeah.
Well, that Deborah made to start with.
Yeah. June Langhoff asks if we can get a listing of the authors' names, titles, and books that you've recommended. So June, if you're still here, and want to pop in as well. And other people can come in too. Remember, we are still on Facebook Live. I'll stop that in a moment as soon as the official part of the panel is over, and I'll stop the recording, but we're still part of the panel now. So if anyone else has any questions to post, I'm looking. If anyone else wants to pop in and ask a question, please do. And this question from June came in probably 15 minutes ago. You guys had recommended some books on plotting, or so that is also something, and Glenda is on the board for MWA NorCal with me, so that's something we can also probably put on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going back through the notes that I've copied, and I don't, Nancy Killy did say that she is delighted to see Camille, because Camille, you contributed to the Cozy Food years ago, and it was a
Oh,
delight.
right.
Good. So we've got lots of friends popping in to see you. Eileen, you mentioned that you get busy. You're actually teaching still, right? You have an overloaded class this term. How many students?
They actually just added one, and I'm at the limit, 22 for this term. So
Yikes.
yeah. Like,
Oh, I have a suggestion, a plotting suggestion for people who are interested in using Scrivener software. David Hewson, does everybody know David Hewson? The English writer, he's been at events in California before, but he has a book called Writing Novels with Scrivener. And it's great because Scrivener is a really, really broad program that does a whole lot of things that writers don't necessarily need to know. And he really breaks it down for what works for writing, and specifically a crime novel, because that's what David writes. And a lot of it is just really good basic plotting advice as well. So I would highly recommend that. And I think it's available as an ebook.
Yeah, if any of you come up with any suggestions, you can send them to me. And I know how to find you. I'll send you an email, and you can, instead of just telling everyone to write to me, I'll send you an email, and then you can give me suggestions. We'll make sure we get those on the website. And those will be probably listed on the MWA NorCal events page, if anyone needs that. Claire, Claire's actually keeps getting kicked out, so I'm hoping she's in our attendees list right now. Claire, if you're here, can you turn your camera and microphone on and join us?
There she is. I see her.
I see that she's here. I'm hoping that her computer will actually let her become visible to us.
Right.
Is this kind of like a Zoom seance, right? It's like, Claire,
Right.
Claire, if you're here, please join us.
She's muted. I see that. But
She's muted and her camera's off, so she could be frantically trying to click buttons and it's just not working right now.
She could be in the UK right now, for all we know. We just don't know where anyone is.
We don't know. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and stop the Facebook feed. So Facebook, I've just checked the chat in Facebook. Thank you for joining us today. There are no further questions. So I'll give you another 20 seconds or so, because I think that's about the lag. If nothing pops in, I'm going to stop that live feed. Once I stop that live feed, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And then I'm going to do the drawing with my random number generator for the book that we're going to give away.
I just want to say before we close everybody out, thank you, Lori, for all your technical wizardry.
Thank you.
Without you. Yes.
Oh, thanks. It's not, Lori King and Claire and Glenda actually does our MWA NorCal Facebook Live events. And if it wasn't me here, Glenda is actually, she owns the magic Zoom Facebook Live wall.
Wow, that's good to know.
Yes, yeah. If anyone out there has questions about how to make Facebook Live happen, Glenda Carroll is the person to go.
It's not hard. If I can do it, you all can do it.
All right, I'm stopping our Facebook Live.